Well, a very good morning to you. It's Monday, May 16, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for staying with us here at WESN. This is how we're going to begin the program this morning. This is AM Prime. We're talking with Mr. Nirvan Maharaj. He's the President General of the All Trinidad General Workers Union. It used to be Sugar Estates and General Workers Union. We know what has happened with the Sugar Estates part of it. He continues to advocate on behalf of workers in different sectors of society. He wrote a piece in one of the newspapers a couple of weeks ago in which he was saying that there's need for the government, for the state to repeal a lot of laws or just put them aside, laws which discriminate against workers. And he's listed about 4 or 5 of them. We're talking with him in the second hour of the program, just after 7. We're also talking with Mr. Alan Ferguson up ahead shortly. He had a meeting with the Minister of Energy one day last week. You know, his organization, the Scrap Iron Dealers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, they've been clamoring for meetings with the Prime Minister, with anybody in authority, to address the issue of scrap iron, the business of scrap iron, and other things that affect their operation. So he met with the Minister of Energy last week. We're trying to get an insight into what transpired and whether, in fact, that is mission accomplished or there is further to go on that. Of course, we have the numbers for you, COVID-19, where we stand with that on this Monday morning. Also, we have the Newsday poll, the question and responses. We'll take you around the region as well. We go to Guyana again this morning for a discussion concerning the Minister of Finance. But right now, we began a discussion last week with retired Professor Winston Sweet, his call for a national symposium on crime, given what is happening in the country. And there's building discussion about that, building anxiety about the situation with the crime. We spoke with both the chair of the Shogunist Business Association as well as the head of the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers in the country. That's Vivek Charan. On that matter, and Mr. Richie Sukai. We're trying to expand the discussion on to see to what extent there's an appetite for a national consultation on crime. Steve Alvarez has written something, well, very, very courageously made some links between what is happening on the streets and elsewhere with people operating on their own, as it were, on this situation. He's agreed to talk with us, and we're continuing the discussion with Professor Sweet on his matter. He said that reactions to the issue can't be solved. We can't fix the crime problem if we don't look at such things as violence in the society, hopelessness, and the extremes of poverty and wealth in the country. So we get him back with us as well. So we start the discussion this morning on that with Steve Alvarez. Good morning, good to see you.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, well, let me repeat what I said in the introduction. You wrote a piece that was circulated that is, you know, it took a lot of courage to do that. You make a link between what is happening with gangs, and you say that there's almost, well, not necessarily almost, you say it bravely, that in some cases gangs and gang members are being accommodated by people in office and people in position, the way in which they operate, and they're allowed to do things with no let or hindrance, as the people say, that there are arrangements by which gangsters and street hustlers demand their piece of the action in terms of the operations of taxis and maxi taxis in a lot of cases, and they're taken in hand, and they get to determine who gets into which vehicle, and that's just a small part of some of what you say, and you say these things have to be addressed.
Well, Andy, I think that slowly in our society we have actually been accommodating illegal activities. And for some reason, because it happens incrementally, we find it acceptable. We find it okay to walk past a drug gang or a drug area that we know everyone in the community knows it's a drug area, and the police know it's a drug area, and nothing is done about it. So it actually, because nothing is done about it, it grows and it continues to become part of the society. We find it okay that as a society we sit down and say, well, we can't go to where the Despers used to play. I remember going up there and listening to the band practice and buying yourself some corn soup and so on in that area. That activity is gone, and accept that. We say it's okay. We accept so many of the negatives that are creeping into our society. The maxi taxi situation happens in our city in front of everyone. And the guys are collecting their money as people come. And we accept that. And now that local government election is coming, you have a situation where to go and campaign in these areas, to go and solicit votes in these areas, the politicians, the persons who are responsible for changing the things, are going to these same gang leaders and say, listen, I need to go to this hill, I need to go to this area, and they do whatever, they give them whatever support they need so they can go in those areas. We have come comfortable in a society, comfortable with the fact that you can't have a TNTech or a WASA repair in your area unless you see a police patrol with it. That is not normal in any modern society. And to sit down and just be comfortable with that. I mean, it talks about a country, a whole community slowly going into anarchy.
All right, let's see if Professor Sweet is back with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah. Good
Sorry for that. You seem to have sent the link to another address.
A different address. All right, we found it now. All right, thank you very much. Let's come in on that point I made about in the introduction, that you're saying that we can't solve the problems if we don't address some things. Some of those that you say have to be addressed, what you call hopelessness and extremes of between wealth and poverty in the country. But let me just get you on whether you believe that the time is right for a national symposium on crime in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I believe that the time is right because it is late. We are late at that consultation. We should have been having a number of other consultations that are urgently feeding into this. And I'm sorry I missed the opening comments by the other speaker, but I have been at 2 points in particular that relate to this.
Yes.
One I mentioned the last day about looking at the information that we get about these areas that are the sites that are called hotspots, gang residence, gang location, but they coincide with extremes of poverty. And possibly this is part of the reason, or this is part of the reason why we have to carry police in there to fix electricity and water, because the people are frustrated. The level of dissatisfaction is high. And we have to set about urgent intervention, almost intervention as if it is the end of the world for some of these people. A lot of things have made this urgent. COVID has made this even more urgent. The failure or the problems in the regional tourism economy has made this urgent. The creeping climate change crisis has made it urgent. But above all, our refusal to develop or to change two things. One, our industrial environment, and hence our economy. And the other thing is our education plan. These are two issues that are archaic. They belong in the distant past.
Now, what do you mean when you talk about our industrial environment? You say that has to be changed. What specifically?
Yes. I often say that we do not know, no one knows, and I doubt the government knows, what are the plans of the private sector for their next 5 to 10 years. What industries do they intend to develop, to expand on? And this is a secret. In fact, I suspect that some of them don't have one. What they have is a plan to carry on as they are. No, for instance, I've been saying before that our industries, I could be criticized and this could be rejected, I would love to have that done, that our industries in the country are still using 1970s or pre-1970s technology. Which of our industries or factories are operating on using modern technology? They have not, in other words, converted their workplace to be what I call IT smart or just simply smart. But there are a number of issues. I believe that, one is the question that the economic plan of the private sector is a secret, whereas it should be a public issue, not only within the private sector, but between the private sector and the public sector and within the general public.
All right. And how do you think? Yeah. How do you think that affects relations between people and lead to what we're talking about the situation with crime and what should be done about it?
It leads to the other issue that I have been beating as a drum. Our education system, as I have said before, is about training people for the industries of the past, not the industries of the future. And the reality of that is that we don't know what are the industries of the future. In fact, my statement is that the private sector has no plan for industries of the future.
All right.
I have gone even further to say that Trinidad and Tobago's economy is even more patently non-viable now. COVID has demonstrated that the collapse of the tourism sector in the Caribbean has told us that. And today, we have not set about thinking about, we are still thinking about Trinidad and Tobago surviving economically by itself. And I believe that Trinidad and Tobago as a economic basis is non-viable right now.
All right, let's hold your point there. Let me just bring you back into the discussion, Steve Alvarez. Make a connection between what you're saying and what the realities on the ground, as people would say.
Well, Andy, one of the things that Professor Sweet talked about is the economic situation. Let me say, from my personal experience, as a member of the Jablotay Sports Club, when we had the appropriate funding, our football club took as an initiative to feed the members of the club, because we recognized that a lot of the members that came to play football, they would come to training without even having breakfast. And I don't think that the average person in Trinidad and Tobago understands exactly what Professor Sweet is talking about, the extent of poverty that exists in our communities. Our club, there was a major difference by simply providing the players with a meal. What happened in the Pro League that followed is that you had communities coming out to the games. You had people selling things like nuts and corn soup and so on. And you have a whole sort of mini industry, sort of mini commercial activity coming out of just football alone. And that's why I like to talk about solutions rather than just the problem. We have to find solutions so that to inspire our young people to find an alternative path to criminal activity. And that must be something that's based in economics. How do this young man or young woman get up in the morning and see a future? And that future cannot be in temporary employment like CPEP and URB. And that's where government has to ensure that whatever we do, and a perfect example is if you look at our budget for national security, it's one of the highest. I think this year it was the second highest allocation in the budget. Now, if you take a few, if you take a few millions,
yes, go ahead.
If you take a few millions from there and you put it into football and you put it into cricket and you put it into, in other words, you put it into sporting activity, that alone would yield more than buying more guns and tasers and so on for the police and army. Because what we're having is a reaction to crime rather than a situation where we're dealing with preventing people from taking.
All right, let's look at some of the things that one can call more easily to mind than others over the last couple of decades. You had a thing called an institution set up called the Citizen Security Program. You've had things with buzz names such as Hoop of Life, Color Me Orange, and programs such as that. So it's not, you have now a sort of a rebuilding and a reconstitution of the National Youth Camps set up, and you have a whole ministry for youth affairs going back into national service and so on. And weren't these things meant to address some of what we're talking about here? Professor Sweet, you had your hand up.
Yeah. That touches on something that we call these make-work programs. They go back more than 40 years. They have all kinds of names, Jude, URP, Special Works. I am not against the use of these things. What I'm against is when they represent the dominant form of relief work and their relief efforts. I'm not saying remove them. I am saying they are not and should not be the central thing, and Mr. Alvarez hinted at the point, of hopelessness. Those programs have created their own dynamism and their own problems. I am not saying remove them. I am saying they should not be the main problem. I listened a few months ago, when the government said that they had let a contract out for transforming Port of Spain into a smart city. And some people may say, well, they're trying to just use slogans. It's not slogans, because when I started to ask questions, I realized I was up against a wall, that we really were not talking about making Port of Spain a smart city. But San Fernando should be a smart city, so should be Arima. In other words, we should be talking about the new technologies, the use of cameras and security, just for a start. And that means training a whole fleet of young men, not only to cut with a whacker or scrape with a wheel, but to use the new technology, the technology of the future. And therefore, they can see some hope, some purpose in their life. But when they have no purpose in their life,
we just had
abandon them.
We just had a big issue about the availability and the efficiency, the efficacy of CCTV cameras, and we had one about a contract that was awarded to one agency, and the government said, well, we want to review that. You take it away from a state agency and give it to competitors. And Steve Alvarez.
Just let me tell you something
shortly. A couple of years ago, some of us might remember when there was a problem in the UK, in London, where some terrorists burned a bus and blah, 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 blah. And within 24 hours, they knew who were the persons and they found them. America, United States, was lagging behind the British in respect of making a city smart is not only about security and catching criminals, etc. It is about you developing your transportation network to be more efficient. This is about technology. This is about training young men. And this brings me to the point that I raised the last day, that if you check and see all these sites where they have these gangs and the poverty, you would see that the residents in these areas have a high rate of dropout from school. Is an indication.
And
that's an incubator of the problem. All right, Steve Alvarez, you want to come back in?
Yeah, and there's definitely anyone who's looking at our situation in Trinidad and Tobago would recognize that there is not political will to deal with the issues that confront us. I'll give you an example. The average person, because of the technology available today, know that within months we can have the identification plates on cars changed, that they become so that you can't go to to the guy next door and buy 5 plates of different numbers and put it on your car. And that technology, and again, what Leonard is talking about in terms of the technology, that technology is available now. So we can mass produce security number plates for our cars within months. This has been talked about for over 10 to 15 years by different administrations and hasn't been done because there's not the political will to do it. The technology is there. And how important that is? Because you know that when you take that car number, that you can identify the person who owns the car, because it's not a false plate. Because you can't get a plate unless you get it issued by the government. Those are things that are simple things. When we talk about the Street was talking about the smart cities. In every modern city in the world today, when they've gotten rid of the parking meters, so now you go to this little computer thing, you put your money in there, you get a ticket and you put it on your dashboard and you pay for parking on the street. What do we do in our city? We want to reintroduce the wrecker. Now this is a system where you can earn income for your city. And it's modern, the technology. You could go and buy that machine tomorrow. So I don't think our problem is one of not knowing what the solutions are. We can benchmark against international standards. Our problem is that we don't have the political will to attack the problems that we face. We simply like to talk. Everybody likes to talk.
If I can interrupt you, you realize what you are hitting at? That to do that kind of smartening up of your transportation and thing, you have to train people. So instead of, as I said, training people to use the whacker, we train people, in other words, to install those things, which calls for a higher and different focus in your high school and your primary school in terms of electrical awareness. A whole new set of people are needed. And that is what we should be training. Our whole education system has to train, has to be in phase with a new technology.
Right, so
a new economic environment.
Yeah, and you're saying that is part of what is required if we're going to be sitting down to talk about how to fix crime, right, Professor?
That is what I'm saying, that we need a consultation that brings together the private sector, the public sector, the university, and the community groups, and individuals who have interest and experience to attack the problem with some urgency. Because we cannot rely purely on the so-called orthodox planning divisions, because a lot of what their planning output is about planning for the past. I keep beating this drum. We are planning for the past. Our education is about the past. Our industries are about the past. And I am saying, for instance, and people ask for solutions, I am saying, look, there's a talk about the climate crisis heading to us, and it's going to hit us hard in the Caribbean. There's going to be a need for greater protection and maintenance of our coastal infrastructure. The government, Ministry of Works, has done some work study, and they have the data. I started to collect and found what they have done. What we need, therefore, is a plan to put people to strengthen our coastal works. We have to look at the whole question. We are seeing it happening in other countries. The transformation to electric vehicles. When are we going to wait?
All right, we need to take a break. I want to ask you to stay with us. I want to ask you to stay with us. We'll take a break and come back for some additional comments before we let you all go. So stay with us. This is AM Prime on this Monday morning. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
As a mother, convenience is a gift. With so many things to juggle every day, I need ease when doing business. Thanks to eyewearsolutions.com, I can order my contact lenses, solutions, and even sunglasses all on the go. Registering and ordering are easy. Plus, I get delivery right at my door or collect in-store if I choose. eyewearsolutions.com. Now that's convenience in a click. Visit eyewearsolutions.com today and enjoy 15% off your first purchase of contact lenses.
Change your fate! Start to win at life with $20,000 every month. Win $20,000 every month for 20 years with NLCB's newest game, Win for Life. 6 numbers from 28 plus the cash ball could make you win for life. You deserve a win. Play Win for Life today. Visit NLCBGames.com for details. Players must be 18 years and over. Please play responsibly.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WASN,
the content capital.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
Welcome back to the program. The proposition is, be it resolved that there be constituted in the shortest possible time a national symposium on crime in Trinidad and Tobago. We're continuing that discussion. We're talking this morning again with Professor Winston Sweet, and we're joined on this segment of the program, today by Mr. Steve Alvarez, because he's written a piece that some people say it took enormous courage to do that, and he's calling out the authorities. He's saying, we're talking about the connection between gangs and gangsters and people in authority and decision-making positions at the highest level. Gentlemen, let me just point something out that is part of the system of frustration we have here. The Commissioner of Police in a story carried last week talking about what the latest set of activities, and he said that there are 146 or I think 148 gangs in the country, but only 6 of them are involved in the majority of crimes taking place. Well, there was an Anti-Gang Act which came into being in 2008, and look, the 2008, that's 12 years ago. And there weren't so many gangs then, one presumes. So in the midst of a legislation treating with the formation and the establishment and the membership of gangs, the gangs have mushroomed. So how do we treat with that as an issue? If we're talking about reducing crime, Steve.
Andy, one of the problems that as political activists and people who write and talk about what's happening in our society, we tend to not want to deal with the reality. The reality is that a lot of gang activity in a lot of our communities is subliminally supported by some members of the police service. I had the experience recently where a gang member in one of the communities in Nigger Martin died. I was working in that area. And that gang, that drug block, was just about 2 blocks away from the police station. And at the funeral, the gang leaders were shooting their guns in the air. You can hear the gunshots from the police station. So they were shooting a sort of a gun salute to the guy that died. And the police in the station remained there. So I don't think that there's any effort, national effort by our police service to deal with these gangs. I think what they have is a sort of symbiotic relationship. And that is a dangerous situation. because you're getting to the point where some members are actually transporting ammunition and guns and drugs. Some of these gangs in police vehicles, and these are things that are not known just to me. They're known to many members of our public. People talk about it on the street every day. So it's not like there's some revelation. These are things that people are aware of.
Yeah,
As I said, you look into Port of Spain and you see the police walking by the guy that's collecting the money from the taxi thing, and nobody says, "Well, why are you doing this? Why, we are, as a society, we have somehow accepted that these guys have to live and they have to do what they have to do, and we're only alarmed when there are 15 and 20 persons killed in a weekend.
Yeah, but
and then we take a pause until it happens again.
But it makes a hash of the legislation, because a lot of work, a lot of discussions over years went to this back and forth on this question about anti-gang legislation, and the legislation makes it illegal to belong to a gang. So how could we be talking about 148 gangs in existence in the country when you have legislation that's saying that it is against the law to be a member of a gang? Professor Sweet, you might have the last word.
Well, if you go back to Commissioner Jacobs made a point that in fact the gangs have penetrated the police force, and we are not surprised of that. They have penetrated. But be that as it may, I believe that this consultation that I keep calling for must be treated with some urgency. But a fallout to that, and I'm saying this to all and sundry, that we, this station, and others should call on all political parties not to wait until election time, but to present to the public a plan for dealing with crime in the country, and a plan for dealing with education in the country, and a plan for dealing with the economy. Those three issues are central. And that let the public judge them on what they have to say and what they have to defend.
All right, I want to say that we will continue this discussion for at least the rest of this week and promote the idea of that. We continue to talk with different people in different sectors. But Steve Alvarez, you're going to have the last word.
Well, Andy, again, as I said, what is required in this country is the political will to deal with things. I would love to see tomorrow the simple things like the number plate on cars being official number plates that are made by the state, that are minted, that are not easily reproduced. If we were to take that one step, a single step, that will make a major dent in criminal activity, because almost everything, whether it's moving drugs or guns, whether it's people shooting at people and running away, all you need to know is what that number plate is. What's the number according to the so take the number. But when that number can be anything and anyone, that it absolutely makes no sense.
Yeah, that was Scrunter back in the 1980s. He was a grandmother was advising her grandchild, when you get in the car, take the number. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. We leave it there. But like I say, Professor, we will come back to you as we go along, and we're trying to get this idea across as much as possible across the widest cross-section of the country towards the establishment of a national crime symposium in Trinidad and Tobago. But thank you both very much for weighing in on this with us. We're going to move straight now to the numbers. COVID-19 in our midst, the new positive cases, the total recovered patients or total active cases, and people at hospital. COVID-19 on this day, May 16, 2022. Let's see the numbers. 141,594, the total recovered patients. The total active positive cases, 9,572. The death toll, to this point, 3,874. 155,040, that's the total positive cases reported since we began the counting on March 12, 2020. 397, the positive cases reported in the 24 hours up to the end of the day yesterday, and 204, well, it's gone above 200 for the first time in weeks, if not months. It's been trending down, and it went down to low 100 and something. It's pushing back up there. For what reason? The experts will have to explain that to us as to where we are. 204 persons in hospital in the parallel health system. So that's a look at where we are. The clinical update, the latest one for COVID-19. Let's go now to the Newsday poll, and the question is, what do you suggest be done to tackle the issue of gender-based violence? Because a lot of that is happening as well. One response is publish a video and a transcript of the wise saying of Rowley and behinds on how to treat women. I was trying to figure out what behinds means, but I think it's a reference. It's a nasty reference to the Minister of National Security. A second response, a lot of times, but not all, the women bring it on themselves because of their hot mouth and loose waist. The person is asking if they lie. Well, that is what, in today's language, people would say that's victim shaming, and you shouldn't be doing that. So that's just what one of the responses to that might be. Another response here, start stripping the men without committing these acts naked in the public, and let them, like the victims, beat them with a weapon or their choice for 1 hour non-stop. And the final response is, the more we raise boys to be feminine and without truly masculine role models, the more they will act on emotion when they grow up. So those are the responses to the question. What do you suggest be done to tackle the issue of gender-based violence in the society? We go straight now to our next guest, Mr. Alan Ferguson, the president of the Scrap Iron Dealers of Trinidad and Tobago. They've been clamoring for meetings with the people in authority for some months. They wanted to meet with the Prime Minister to really address their concerns. In their view, those concerns are not being addressed. They had a meeting last week with the Minister of Energy. The question is that an opening in the door, and where to go from here? Mr. Ferguson, good morning. Thanks for coming on. What's the situation? You have to unmute your mic. Unmute the mic. Because we're not hearing you.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me on. I want to thank your station, and I want to monitor your viewers and your listeners.
Yeah, well, there's a principle in journalism that is called follow-ups. You know, we don't drop stories in mid-air and you know, take one shot of it. We try to follow things through thoroughly. So that's why we have you back when we have you back. But go ahead.
And I have absolutely no problem with that, because I am free to the media anytime. What happened, we had met with Mr. Stuart Young and the permanent secretary and other people in the ministry in reference to our problem affecting our industry. It was fruitful that the meeting that we had with them. We had showed them our proposal in reference to our shipping project. We had even discussed the Petrotrin issue with the material in Petrotrin. We had discussed a lot of other issues. Our main thing is the shipping project that we would like to get on sometime this year. We will really want to start it. We discussed that, and we had showed them our proposal date. I think it looked good in front of their eyes. They asked us.
We're losing you. You said the response to it is what? I think.
They also take information concerning the Petrotrin issue that we had with Heritage. They take information in reference to what went on with us. So we have absolutely no problem with all of these things, because I say if we couldn't get result one time, we need to wait, and we have absolutely no problem in that too.
So what did he say about the fact that you all were bidding for some of that material which was removed from Petrotrin by people about whom you don't know, who you're not sure are members of your association? Well, they're not. Are their operations what did he say about that?
No, well, remember, Andy, we had information to to punish him.
Yes.
And we had punished him with the information in reference to what take place.
Yes.
So he had take that information, and now we have to go and check it out. You know, he was not able to give give us no result one time. So we have no problem also with that. As a minister, you know, you take information based on what we had punished him with, and he now will go back and check and see. But the issue with that remain the same thing for us. But as I say, we have no problem waiting because we wait so long to get a meeting, so we have absolutely no problem waiting, because the thing is about patience, and based on what they have said to us and what the response we get from them, I think it was good. So all we have to do now is wait.
All right, so it's a crack in the door. Did he say that this meeting was in lieu of the fact that you've been trying to petitioning the Prime Minister to get a meeting with him? So he is sort of deputizing for the Prime Minister. Did he make that point?
Yeah, well, we also, I mean to say, when I started this meeting, I supposed to say I also thank the Prime Minister for giving us this here, because I mean to say the Prime Minister, we are lobbying the Prime Minister for a meeting for the longest while, and this meeting was because of the Prime Minister. So we want to thank the Prime Minister for giving us this meeting, because this is an opportunity for our industry, you know. Our industry, based on what we have present for them, we know that we will be able to assist Trinidad and Tobago in where the job is concerned, where the foreign exchange is concerned. This project is not a project that just come yesterday. We have been working on this project for more than 8 years, so we know that this project is a strong project for this region, not Trinidad and Tobago alone, the region. This project, because we had people coming from all over the world to assist us in how we put this project together. You know, this project have a lot of skills people. A lot of people will be able to learn a lot of different things, because we will. As I was listening to your guests in the early stage of this, in the interview,
yes,
and they was talking about technology. This project would really bring us some of the latest technology for cutting ships and removing ships from under the water and all them things, you know. So we understand that, because we are traveling all over the world and see new technology, and we say we will move to them kind of areas, because if you want to fast track things, look at a ship with about 100 feet. We were able to cut up that in 3 days. When you had us to take months to do that, we will be able to do that. So we understand too. We went places and see technology also, and we say we will move in them direction. That is why we could tell you that this shipping project will be one of the biggest in this region here.
Yeah. So what's the next step? Where to from here? So you're going to put in the door, as it were.
Well, we could tell you that our team, they said they will meet with us again, based on we have to put some things more in our project and get some things more clear for them. And we, as I say, we have no problem doing it. So we are, me and my team will start to work on that this week here. And then we will, as soon as we finish, we have to get back to them in reference to what we're going to do. And we move from there. And I think it's a step in the right direction for us. And we hope that they could give us the opportunity to make things happen for this country also. And that is it, you know. As at the moment, all we could do is wait and hope for the best.
Yeah, but you're putting together something to forward to the minister as for the next step, and then you all will have discussions again.
Yes, they promise to have a lot of other meetings in reference to this project and other things to be. And we also discussed our industry, the laws that govern our industry, because do you know the laws that govern our industry? We are sitting down with all these stakeholders to make sure that things have go in a different way in reference to our industry, where the laws is concerned. Because our laws is since in 1834, 1934, somewhere so, and it have not been changed. All that have been done in 2014 is an amendment. And we have been lobbying for a lot of change in this industry, and that is one. And we had discussion in reference to that. We also had a discussion about the TSTT. Why what we could do as an industry to stop all this stuff. So we had discussed a lot of things. The meeting had gone more than nearly 2 hours. So we know that we moving in the correct way.
Well, for instance, what is your proposal to address that? When you say the TSTT-Y, well, you're talking T and Tech.
TSTT-Y.
What do you mean?
No, you remember the people are going all around Trinidad and Tobago keeping TSTT wire and
the copper.
And we put, the copper wire, and we had put a proposal inside TSTT to able to stop that, and TSTT have not responded to us in reference to what we could do to stop this, and this is one of the things that we discussed,
with the minister.
Yes.
So you're hopeful that there'll be some fruitfulness from that as a specific.
Well, we didn't get time to go in plenty of the proposal, what we could do, but we did discuss it, and we hope that, I know that he is on the team in reference to some change in TSTT in reference to ministers have I forget the body that they bring now to able to, but he's part of it, and I hope that he could send it, go back to them and let them know that if we could get a meeting with the body that could be able to make this change in TSTT, that because you see TSTT had told us that we don't have the skill, but the problem is that they don't know that we just link up with other people all over the world, and we are linked up with some of the contractors to able to put this proposal together. This is not about people going around buying scrap iron, buying battery. We understand the technology. We understand how it is to able to use skills to do certain things. And I think they just mix it up with this buying battery and buying scrap iron, but they don't understand that we understand skills, what it takes to do things.
So that's part of the proposed restructuring of TSTT. So you're all hoping to be able to be allowed to sit with them and address that particular.
Yes,
all
because
right.
In the past we had sit down with TSTT and solve a lot of problems where copper wire is concerned.
All right, so this meeting signals the beginning of a new day for the
scrap iron industry, the scrap iron industry.
All right.
And we hope and we pray that this industry could do a lot for Trinidad and Tobago, because Andy, I must tell Trinidad and Tobago, our Minister of Trade has mentioned about 2 or 3 weeks ago that this industry have improved the export for more than from 2019 to 2021, 47% improvement in export out of Trinidad and Tobago. And you could tell me, you remember, if we were able to put this shipping project work together, you would understand the export out of Trinidad and Tobago.
All right.
And
we gotta leave it there. We'll take it up another time as we go along. Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson, Alan Ferguson, President of the Scrap Iron Dealers of Trinidad and Tobago. Well, some progress has been made, and you look for even brighter days ahead. Thank you very much. Well, we move now to our first feature, going around the region. We go to Guyana once more, where there's a discussion, and the Minister of Finance, who is a senior minister in the Office of the President, was praising the private sector for what it says would be their efforts over the years on the political landscapes. Well, let's see what that means in specifics. We get this report from Guyana News Source.
At the opening of the 30th Annual General Meeting of the Private Sector Commission, the Finance Minister said over the years, when the PP Civic government presented its budget, it has received criticism as being pro-private sector or for the business community.
And this has always puzzled me, because the submission apparently being made is that a budget that is pro-private sector is somehow a bad thing for Guyana. This government's position is that a budget that promotes private sector growth, that promotes the creation of jobs, that promotes the generation of incomes for Guyanese people can only be a good thing for Guyana.
According to the Finance Minister, the PP Civic administration will continue to have a policy that encourages the growth of businesses and job creation, which he said is one of the key pillars to developing a country.
And we will continue to maintain a policy framework that is conducive to growth and expansion in the private sector, to creation of jobs, to generation of incomes, and to creation of wealth for all of the Guyanese people. This is the commitment of this People's Progressive Party civic government.
Dr. Singh said the Guyanese economy is currently shifting dramatically and is generating significant economic growth, and therefore it is important to have that shift in the way things are done.
This government sees the private sector and the Private Sector Commission and other private sector representative bodies as highly valued and cherished partners in national development.
All right, so let's just tell you this. Change labor laws which disadvantage workers. That's the headline on a piece carried in the Express on Tuesday, May 3rd. It was written by Mr. Nirvan Maharaj. She's the President General of the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union and the leader of the National Solidarity Assembly. He'll be our guest to discuss it. On the other side of the program, we take a break. We have news at 7 o'clock. We continue. Stay here with us.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
North Coast Jazz 2022. You asked for it. Consider it done. Park in comfort at the Queen's Park Savannah and ride in style to festival grounds for the biggest family event. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Park, ride, enjoy. It's all about family. Family Saturday, May 28th. Together again. Festival grounds, Blanchishers. Family. A tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby, St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Extra Foods Sagre Grande, Digicel, Trin City and Gulf City Malls, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One-on-One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One-on-One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One-on-One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
All right, welcome back to the program. Let's begin this segment with just a bit of narration. One, there's an immediate need for simultaneous reform of the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act and the Companies Act. We'll tell you why he's saying that. Two, the reform of the Registration, Recognition and Certification Board is also needed since unions often face the daunting task of applications for recognition taking years to process. Three, it is also essential that an indemnity fund be established with a guaranteed security by the government. Four, there must be reform of the Industrial Relations Act to ensure the Industrial Court is able to enforce the awards and judgment it delivers. There's no doubt the time has come to consider these reforms as a start in order to begin the process of alleviating the plight of the working class and their representative unions and level the playing field, which at present is weighed heavily in favor of the employers, with workers seemingly at a great disadvantage with the labor laws as they are currently constituted. Those were the touch points in a piece carried in the Express on May 3rd, written by Mr. Nirvan Maharaj. He's the President General of the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union and leader of the National Solidarity Assembly. Mr. Maharaj is our guest now. Good morning, good to have you. Thanks for coming on, sir. All right, I think you have to unmute your mic.
It is unmuted.
So we're hearing you now. Yeah. Thank you very much. You were saying?
A pleasant good morning to you and, of course, to the viewers out there. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I started off trying to find you on Saturday when I went to the book launch for the book by Professor Samaru on Mr. Kolarienzi, but I got distracted on the way. But were you there?
Unfortunately, I had meetings with my general council members on that day.
All right.
And because of COVID-19, it spaced out, so it took that time.
All right, yeah. But I imagine you had people.
Yeah, indeed. I had a representative there, yes.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you, so what is the National Solidarity Assembly? Before we get into the meat of the subject, let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, it was an organization set up by the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union as its political arm. As you are aware, between 2012 to 2018, we would have articulated and advocated on behalf of ex-colony workers. And it was designed to, in an attempt to force the then government, the People's Partnership Government and even the People's National Movement, to take the ex-colony workers seriously. And therefore, we contested the local elections in 2016 in San Grande, Cuba, Tabaquita, Paro Regional Corporation, and even in Princestown. So it's really the political arm of the All Trinidad Union.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you a little bit about how the union, I was going to say the complexion of it, but the substance of it may have changed because it was a union representing sugar workers. It used to be called the All Trinidad Sugar Estates and Factory Workers Unions. When you lost Carolina Limited, what sort of pivot you all had to do, and your predecessors even, to keep the union viable, to represent whom?
Well, I actually came into the union in 2012.
Yes.
That is 9 years after the industry was shut down.
Right.
So I never really represented ex-colony workers per se as having the local standard for them.
Yes.
But the union has a heavy presence in the manufacturing and service sectors,
yes,
and also in certain agricultural sectors, which are residual interests of the colony limited. So we do have a pretty decent membership, and we do what we have to do to represent those that we currently hold within our fold.
Yeah. So let's see to what extent we can go through them one by one here. There's an immediate need for the simultaneous reform of the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Acts and the Companies Act in order to protect workers and ensure they are paid all benefits as if they are major creditors in the event of the wind-up of a company. Let's talk about...
The point I was actually making is that when a company winds up, the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act basically states that if there's full retrenchment, then a company may not be liable for retrenchment benefits. And that is intricately linked to the Companies Act, where workers are not placed at the top of the list of creditors. My point is that financial institutions and government agencies, which a company may owe, are best able to protect themselves and buffer any losses by their own profits, and of course by subsidies from the government, for example, TNTEC or WASA, or even banking institutions. But a worker who depends on a salary to ensure day-to-day living could ill afford to lose all terminal benefits in the event of a wind-up. And therefore, I'm saying that the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act should be amended to ensure, regardless of the state of the retrenchment, whether it's part or whole, workers are paid their terminal benefits. And also, with regard to the Companies Act, I'm saying that workers should be placed at the top of the list of creditors, because we have to remember that a worker's labor is what they give in return for compensation, and they too are creditors in the event of a wind-up, because they are owed their due compensation for the labor they provide. So these are some of the changes I was asking for with regard to the Companies Act and the Retrenchment Act. I think they are intricately linked together, and I don't know how it was formed in that way, but at the end of the day, a lot of these things were in the Industrial Relations Act, for example, was 1971. The Companies Act, the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act in the 80s. And as such, a lot of time has passed, and we are seeing a situation where, because of COVID-19, and companies taking unilateral decisions, varying collective agreements, engaging in retrenchment, multitasking, without any redress to the workers, I think this is a start in ensuring that in the event of the wind-up of a company, workers are given their just due. And we saw it happening with regard to the Steelworkers Union in Trinidad and Tobago, where the company would have packed up and left, and workers are now in limbo. And this is one of the pieces of legislation that I think must be amended.
I think number 2, the reform of the Registration, Recognition and Certification Board is also
certainly
needed. Yeah.
That falls within the realm of the Industrial Relations Act, and I think it has to be amended as well. There are some Caribbean countries where, in order for a union to gain recognition, it takes about 3 months. In Trinidad and Tobago, you could actually have a union applying for certification today, and 5 years have gone and they still would not have gotten certification, because the procedure is so daunting in terms of checking the union books, the company's books, looking at the workers who were there at a particular point in time when the application was actually made, a union having to get 51% of the workforce before they could actually be given the right to bargain collectively for these workers. And therefore, what we are saying is that there needs to be a change, because you have a situation where many unions would have applied for recognition. And at the end of the day, sometimes the company closed down, sometimes the company changes its name. The whole process would have to be done over. The Old Trinidad, for example, waited many, many years before we could get recognition for the Mora Valley Farm, for example. for Skechers Limited. So we need to take a page out of the books of the other Caribbean islands and make sure that it's friendly enough for both worker and union to be able to come together to represent the interests of the workers. Otherwise, yes.
Which countries do you think would be models or are models that we could follow in the Caribbean?
There are certain Caribbean countries, I think Grenada, for example, Barbados, Antigua, where it's quite easy for unions to gain recognition to represent workers. In fact, there are some countries where you don't need to get 51%. If you have workers who decide to join a union, then the union will be given recognition to represent those workers. And there are many other changes. For example, in the Industrial Relations Act, it can't be that if you get recognition for a bargaining unit, and you get 51% of the workers who are paying union dues and those who are not paying union dues benefit from the collective agreements that are made. And as such, it's a bit unfair for those workers who are paying union dues, while those who don't also benefit from a collective perspective. Of course, if something should happen to them as an individual, and they are not financial members of a union with the recognition, then certainly the union has no locus standi to represent them. But from a collective, these laws have to be changed to make it a bit fairer for those workers who are union members as for those workers who refuse to join a union that has recognition. So these are some of the things I have been looking at and advocating for in terms of legislative change.
Right, and how does changing the board fix that? Because with the Articles of Association of the board, you said that, the current status or situation is that there must be demonstrated that at least 51% of the bargaining unit must give consent or give their support.
Join the union, yes. Yeah. No, what I'm saying is that certainly at the end of the day, legislation could only be changed at the level of the parliament, of course.
Yes.
And we know that unions for many years would have been making representation. In fact, the unions would belong to something called the National Tripartite Committee.
Council and so on.
Advisory Council, whereby suggestions have been made with regard to labor legislative reform. But that has been taking many years to come to fruition. In fact, the Minister of Labour, I think a couple of months ago, would have indicated that in 2 weeks' time, some of these things will be coming to Cabinet and then to Parliament, and that has not materialized. And that has nothing to do with, it has nothing to do with this government specifically. It has to do with subsequent governments over the years that would have promised many things and many legislative reform, and you never see it happening. So it has to be done at the level of the Parliament, and that is where I think both the opposition and the government must come together on certain issues to deal with it from the perspective of that which will benefit the working class and, of course, level the playing field. So it has to do with legislative reform.
Yeah, and you're not necessarily talking here about the membership of the board, of who gets to be a member of the board and so on.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about the fact that the Industrial Relations Act needs to be amended. This aspect of the act that deals with the certification board, and we need to look at it again to make it a bit more user-friendly. For example, the decisions of the board cannot be appealed by the union when it comes to recognition unless you go through the process of judicial review. That in itself is a very hard, long, daunting, and costly exercise.
Now, what is a better alternative?
Well, I'm saying that there should be an appeals tribunal set up within the aspect of the certification board, where if a union is denied recognition, the union could certainly, without any cost being borne by the union, make an appeal and have the matter reviewed at that level. As it stands, you can't appeal So some of these things I think we need to look at, of course.
Right. And in this case, you're trying to move from a system which it takes years to you're saying that it could be done in 3 months, the process, recognition.
There are some islands where I think Grenada, for example, it's done in about 3 months. So I'm saying that to gain recognition for a bargaining unit in a company, if workers, let's say 40% of the workforce joins a union and wants to, or even 51% or above joins the union, it can't be that gaining recognition. can really assess our system and the way that we do it.
All right. It is also essential that an indemnity fund be established with a guaranteed security by the government to which foreign-based companies must contribute. And it goes on to expand on that. Talk about it. Yeah.
Well, certainly there are many companies who come to Trinidad. I think the prime example would be the Steelworkers Union, where when that company wound up, workers were left in limbo and had no access to any terminal benefits. And so the point I'm making is that when foreign-based companies come to Trinidad, they should contribute to a fund, perhaps partly subsidized by the government. So in the event of a wind-up of the company, workers will be able to access some type of terminal benefits. The All Trinidad, for example, I remember we won a matter against a Chinese company. I won't call the name of that company. And a substantial amount of money at the level of the industrial court. And the company just packed up and left our shores. And that particular worker was left in limbo because certainly you can't go to China in an attempt to get some sort of legal representation, some sort of redress for the company leaving our shores. And that worker was left in limbo. So there must be some method, there must be some criteria, there must be some form, some mechanism set up in which workers will be able to benefit, at least get their compensation for work provided, get their terminal benefits if a company should wind up and leave our shores. Yeah. And today we are seeing the sad effects of that on the Steelworkers Union of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, and then it's bad. Would you think that the same thing happened?
Yes, it's spat actually. And that is why it's so imperative that workers who are working for foreign-based companies be given some type of protection under the law, not as it stands. While a locally based company, you could deal with it through process and procedure of the industrial court and maybe the high court. At the end of the day, a foreign-based company packing up and leaving, there's no way in the world you would have enough resources to deal with that company overseas.
And the other one, there must be reform of the Industrial Relations Act to ensure the industrial court is able to enforce the awards and judgments it delivers. It's delivered. So you want to say some more, but that's the opening sentence in that one.
Sure. As it stands, awards and judgments of the industrial court cannot be enforced at the level of the industrial court. If you should get an award against a company and the company refuses to abide by that award, that judgment has to be registered at the level of the High Court, and in order to make it an award of the High Court. And then you have to go through the process of the High Court in an attempt to enforce that judgment. And it makes it extremely difficult for the ordinary worker, and even unions who would have to expend huge sums of money, and even the worker, because many times the local standard of the union ends at the level of the industrial court. So what we are saying is that there must be a method. There must be some sort of legislative change to enable the industrial court to give greater punitive damages, if you want to put it like that, in the event of companies refusing to abide by the industrial court judgments. The court must have the ability to sanction in such a manner as to be able to enforce its judgments. Even collective agreements, for example, are only enforceable at the level of the industrial court. Where if the industrial court gives a ruling on a collective agreement and the company refuses to abide by that, then the union would have to go, or the worker would actually have to go to the High Court and take up the matter as a breach of contract, which again is a different ballgame, a very costly ballgame. And as such, I am saying that we have to give the industrial court a bit more teeth, because as it stands in many instances, the industrial courts sometimes become like a toothless bulldog at times, where you may give a judgment on an award and companies simply appeal it or simply refuse to abide by it, and you have to go further to deal with it. So, if I may, the industrial court was actually based on the chancery court system in England, where the ordinary person could go and stand before the king and say, well, look, I have been unfairly done by. And the industrial court is really it is not bounded by the technical and criminal legalities of law. It deals with opinion, it deals with social conscience and social justice. And what you have happening is an almost legalization of the court well, ordinary labor officers from a union going to represent a worker and indicating, listen, something has gone wrong, this worker has been unfairly done by, would be coming up against senior counsels and attorneys at law. And so you have a change in dynamic, even within the realm of the industrial court. And I think these things have to be addressed because the court needs to be given a bit more power. It needs to be given the right and the ability to act as a court and deal with its own jurisprudence. Because if not, then we may as well restructure the whole industrial court and have industrial court judges, for example, appointed by the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, rather than as it stands by the Attorney General and the Political Directorate.
So a lot of times,
more power.
Yeah. So a lot of times when the industrial court makes a ruling or gives a judgment and so on, and you see this fist punching in the air, sometimes that goes on a hope and a prayer that the people who are required to take action do that, because
certainly, and your statement is very adequate and totally correct. The fist punching in the air and the shouts to the heavens about being triumphant in the interest of the working class. That is basically the imagery that may be shown, but behind the imagery, you have serious issues that needs to be addressed. Because I may claim victory in a judgment, it doesn't mean I will be able to get what the judgment states. Because there are many companies that go through the process of continuous appeals, frustrating the process and frustrating workers and unions. Then you have the situation, as I said, where you may win a victory at the level of the industrial court and it's never enforced because you have to go to the high court to enforce it. Extremely costly. So these are some of the things that needs to be looked at when we come to the legal aspect of industrial relations.
Yeah. So what's been the reaction from some of your colleagues in across the labor movement to this kind of intervention?
Well, I mean, I have articulated this for many, many years within the realm of NATUC and the Joint Trade Union movement. I know that my colleagues would have done the same. And I know that the union representatives on the NTAC would have also done the same. What I think the problem really stems at the level of the legislature, at the level of parliament, where you need the political directorate to develop the political will to bring to the parliament some of these changes, or at least bring it to be debated at parliament. But we are not seeing that. These things are remaining at the level of consultations and white papers, as you may say. And at the end of the day, nothing is being done. And you know, I often tell my colleagues, and I have no apologies for saying this, it's one thing to shout to the heavens and rant and rave and march and demonstrate and have motorcades. But at the end of the day, unless you could have the legislative reform necessary to adequately address the shortcomings, then all this shouting to the heavens would make no sense. Because while it may look good on the television, at the end of the day, behind the scenes, the workers are still working, existing within a realm which is detrimental to them.
All right, Mr. Maharaj, we want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson, for having me.
All right, we'll see where it goes from here. We try and follow it as best we can. But thank you very much, Nerivan Maharaj, the President General of the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union and leader of the National Solidarity Assembly, calling for sweeping changes to a number of pieces of legislation having to do with the arrangement between employers and employees, workers in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's take another look around the region now. The Turks and Caicos Islands, we go there. They're hosting what is called the 52nd annual meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank, of which Belize is a borrowing member. We get more from that from Channel 5 in Belize.
This meeting and similar undertakings of this nature, and I'm referring to the CDB Board of Governors meeting, are beneficial to both the region and to Turks and Caicos. It is beneficial because it sustains the partnership as we work towards sustainable development goals of the United Nations, and more importantly, to decrease our vulnerabilities and to build resilience. Very important aspects and targets of our relationship. The time and circumstances, in my view, Mr. President, are appropriate for effecting the policies and strategies for the change that we all envision. And so we must embrace each opportunity, and this is one that I truly embrace, to deepen our CARICOM relationship. This meeting and the related dialogue have the potential to aid in shaping the society and creating the future that all our citizens deserve.
All right, let's just tell you quickly what's in these papers. The Newsday Trinidad and Tobago and the Newsday Tobago. A lot of ugly in TNT. A former minister for Innocent Rose Graves there speaking out on that issue. The continuing reports about years, decades of abuse among children in Trinidad and Tobago, or of children in Trinidad and Tobago. So that's the front page of the Newsday this morning, and that is the back page on the Newsday Tobago. Well, crime, again, it takes center stage in a lot of respects. The Chief Secretary, bandits will soon be brought to justice, and Tobago police reassure the public their spate of robberies, and they're talking about the high rate of crime in Trinidad and in Tobago. Other headlines on the front page of the Newsday Tobago. The Health Division's COVID-19 plan is just a show. Tutor is saying that, and the Minister of Planning is reported here saying that a good tourism product can boost Tobago's GDP. So that's the front page of that. And this is the back page of the Newsday Tobago. We will tell you as we wrap up that we will continue our discussions for the rest of the week, both here on AM Prime as well as on Talking Point, on the question of be it resolved, the resolution that there be a national crime symposium in Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to be talking about that for the rest of this week, some forms or the other. But for now, we want to thank you for watching. We want to thank our guests. We tell you to stay where you are. Coming up in half an hour or so, today's edition of Talking Point after the news at 8. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We see you tomorrow.